Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a deeply fascinating challenge. And honestly, it's one that every single one of us is going to face at some point. Think about it. How do we communicate profound experiences that completely defy words? Well, we are breaking down a brilliant text today called The Syntax of Silence, which actually gives us a totally new grammar for the unspeakable.
Let's jump right in. The authors point out this really profound truth right off the bat. There are experiences that literally break language. When we go through massive, world-altering events, deep grief, overwhelming awe, or profound trauma, our vocabulary doesn't just fail us. It structurally shatters. The authors describe it perfectly. It's like being a fish pulled from water. Your mouth is open, your jaw is working, but absolutely nothing is coming out. So this brings us to the big central question of today's explainer. How do we speak the unspeakable? If our standard everyday dictionary just isn't built for these profound depths, we need a new framework. So we're going to map this unmappable territory together.
Okay, let's start with Section 1, the crisis of language. Basically, what happens when words just break? Think about how we normally talk. Ordinary language acts kind of like a knife, right? It carves up and categorizes our world into neat, distinct little boxes. But the unspeakable, it's whole, it's continuous and alive. The moment you try to force these huge, living experiences into a category, their essence just drains right away. It's literally like blood draining from a wound made by the very knife you used to point at it. And you see this when words hit an absolute wall. Even highly articulate people struggle with this. Trying to say you're quote-unquote sad after a devastating loss, that's like trying to carry the entire ocean in a coffee cup. Or trying to describe a mystical encounter. It instantly turns a living, breathing moment into dry, dead fossils. And trauma, that lives entirely in our nervous system. It's trapped in this evolutionary space from long before language even existed. Which brings us to Section 2, the grammar of unsaying, pointing at the silence. The source actually outlines 4 specific linguistic tools that help us, they help us fail more precisely. They aren't meant to perfectly capture the experience, because they can't, but they honestly gesture toward the truth. We've got negation, paradox, metaphor, and apophasis. Let's walk through them. First up is negation, or the via negativa. Basically, if you can't say what something is, you systematically eliminate what it isn't. You might say, well, it wasn't a nightmare, but it sure wasn't pleasant. Every not this acts like you're clearing furniture out of a crowded room. Eventually, the actual shape of that unspeakable experience is outlined entirely by the empty space left behind. Next is paradoxical syntax. Think about classic Zen koans, like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? This is the deliberate installation of a logical impossibility. It's designed to literally break our logical minds. It tears the surface of consistent language to reveal the really spacious, full silence underneath. Then we have the poetic syntax of silence. Now, this is way different from your normal everyday metaphor. When a poet like Rumi writes, I am the wind, he isn't saying he kind of feels like the wind. No, he's making an absolute identity claim. He is completely eliminating the boundary between himself and the world. It's an impossible claim, and it totally forces us to look past the words themselves. And our fourth tool is apophasis. This is when you flat out say, words can't describe this, while you're actively trying to describe it anyway. It's not a contradiction, actually. It's this profound honesty. It brilliantly honors that gap between our linguistic maps and the real territory. You're basically telling the listener, look, I know these words are wrong, but I'm offering them to you as a gesture anyway.
Moving on to Section 3, the body and the pause, going way beyond spoken language.
So here is a really crucial takeaway. Our bodies have their own native grammar, and it requires zero translation. While ordinary language is always trying to translate, manage, and represent an experience, your bodily posture simply embodies it. A hand on a shoulder in a moment of terrible grief isn't just a symbol of solidarity. It literally is solidarity. Trauma is held in the nervous system, and honestly, sometimes trying to force it into a verbal narrative actually falsifies it. The authors give us this fantastic practical exercise for this. First, just think of an unspeakable experience. Then, wait for it to arrive somatically in your body. Let your body find its own organic, unsupervised posture. Maybe it's your shoulders dropping, or maybe your jaw clenches. Finally, just stay there. Simply allowing your body to react organically reveals a truth that goes so much deeper than any spoken word ever could.
And that brings us to the sixth rule of this grammar: actual, literal silence. Not a speech about silence, but just the cessation of the word. Let's take a breath right now. Notice that pause, that silence, isn't empty. It is totally, completely full. It's the very ground that all language emerges from.
There's this brilliant Japanese concept that captures this perfectly called ma. It's the concept of negative space, or the pause that is a presence all on its own. Think of music. It's the silence between the notes that actually gives a melody its meaning. When someone falls completely silent while trying to tell you something difficult, they are still communicating. Receiving that silence, rather than immediately rushing to fill it with your own discomfort, creates the deepest possible form of human contact. All right, final section, section 4. Language as a provisional raft. Using this in everyday life. The authors use this absolutely incredible metaphor from the Buddha. You use a raft to cross a river, right? But once you reach the other side, you don't pick the heavy raft up and carry it around on your back. We have to start using language as a temporary vehicle. Our biggest mistake is constantly confusing the map for the territory itself. Words are just pointers. Because words are just pointers, we should practice what they call provisional speech. Treat everything you say as a working model. Use open endings. Constantly self-qualify with phrases like, "as far as I can tell," or, "hey, I could be totally wrong about this." Explicitly invite people to correct you. Doing this strips away all that false certainty and turns your communication into an honest, shared project. And when you're on the receiving end, you've got to practice active listening. Our natural transactional habit is to scan someone's words just so we can quickly formulate our own reply. You have to step out of that. Don't scan. Receive their silence as a deep form of communication. And when you finally do react, let it emerge purely from your presence in that exact moment. Be a true witness for them.
Which leaves us with one final thought. We've seen that our deepest experiences often break our language, and that the failure to find words is actually a feature. It's not a bug. It's an open invitation to use negation, paradox, our bodies, and genuine shared silence to make real, authentic contact. So, looking at your own profound connections, how will you hold space for silence in your own relationships? Think about it, and maybe start listening to the spaces between the words. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you next time.